Welcome, dear dreamer. You found your way to Moonlight Whispers, a quiet corner of the night where stories breathe softly, time slows down, and the world feels just a little more gentle. Settle in, let your thoughts rest, and allow tonight's tale to guide you into calm, warmth, and wonder. There's a small, almost forgotten street in a quiet, seaside town, a place where the nights feel a little deeper, the shadows a little softer, and the moon always seems just slightly larger than anywhere else. No one really remembers when the street got its name, Harbor Lane. It's not near the harbor anymore. The old docks were moved decades ago, and the sea has long since retreated. But the name remained, carved into a weathered wooden sign that creaks softly whenever the wind passes by. And yet, despite how ordinary Harbor Lane looks during the day, something gentle and strange happens there at night. Or rather, something gentle and strange appears. A cat, not just any cat, a quiet silver grey stray with moon-pale eyes. The locals call him Lumen, because he shows up only when the moon is full, and every time he comes, he brings a gift. Not for everyone, just for the person who needs it most. At least, that's how the stories go. Some say he's just a stray. Others whisper he's something more. But no one ever argues about one thing. Lumen always arrives with the moon, and he always leaves before dawn. This is the story of the night I finally met him. It happened on one of those nights when sleep refuses to come. You know the kind, when the house is quiet, the clock ticks too loudly, and your thoughts wander restlessly from one corner of your mind to another. I stepped outside just to breathe. Harbor Lane was calm, wrapped in a soft blue glow, spilled gently across the rooftops. Moonlight pooled like water in the cracks between old paving stones. A lantern flickered beside my door, its warm amber light mixing with the cold silver of the moon. That's when I saw him. A small shape sitting in the middle of the road, tail wrapped neatly around paws, head tilted upward as if he was studying the moon with deep concentration. Silver fur, soft and slightly unkempt, eyes bright and reflective like still water. Lumen, the cat of the full moon. He didn't run, he didn't blink. He simply looked at me in a way that made the night feel suddenly real, as if the moon had opened a door that only he and I were allowed to see. I approached slowly. "Hello," I whispered. He blinked once, long and thoughtful, then stood stretched delicately and trotted toward me. At his feet, he carefully placed a small object, a seashell, perfectly smooth, pale blue, glowing faintly in the moonlight, the kind of shell you can't find on our shores anymore. I knelt, gently picking it up. As soon as my fingers touched it, the wind shifted. Softly, warmly, like a memory brushing the edge of my mind. When I looked up again, Lumen was already walking away, tail high, heading toward the far end of the lane, toward the moonlight pooling there like a quiet silver river. Over the next months, I started asking around. Everyone on Harbor Lane had a story about Lumen. Mrs. Halbrook, the elderly baker, once found a smooth pebble in the shape of a heart on her doorstep. She got it the day after her granddaughter had to move away. Young Samuel, who lived 2 houses down, once received a tiny wooden whistle. The next day he made his first friend at school, a quiet boy who loved whistles. The lighthouse keeper, long retired, once found an old brass key wrapped in ribbon. He still wears it on a chain around his neck. He says the key brought him peace after years of loneliness. No one knew where Lumen found these things. No one asked. because somehow each gift felt like the answer to a question you didn't know you'd asked. The second time Lumen came to me was 3 months later, another full moon. I'd been sitting by the window, struggling to write a letter I wasn't sure how to begin. Grief makes even simple words heavy. I stepped outside for air, and there he was again. This time, he carried something larger in his mouth, delicately held. When he placed it at my feet, I saw what it was. A small pocket watch, old but polished. Its metal gleamed softly, reflecting both moonlight and lamplight. But the most curious part wasn't the watch itself, it was the engraving. On the back in tiny letters, "Time returns what the heart remembers." I didn't understand what it meant. Not yet. But when I opened the watch, it wasn't the ticking that surprised me. It was the fact that the watch was set to the exact time my mother used to read me bedtime stories. A time I hadn't thought about in years. I looked up, breath caught in my chest. Lumen was sitting beside me, tail curling around his paws, watching gently. "What are you?" I whispered. He didn't answer, of course, but he leaned forward and pressed his forehead against my hand before slipping away into the shadows once more. Months passed. I waited for the full moon every time, wondering if Lumen would return. One night he did, but this time he carried nothing. Instead, he simply walked straight to my doorstep, circled twice, and settled beside me. No gifts, no mysterious objects, just a quiet presence, solid and warm. He stayed there for a long while, purring softly, a low, steady hum like a lullaby for the night itself. Only then did I realize something. Sometimes the gift is simply not being alone. The last time I saw Lumen, the moon was unusually bright, full and golden, the kind that looks almost too big for the sky. I was walking down Harbor Lane when I saw him sitting by the old fence near the abandoned garden. Beside him was something wrapped in a scrap of blue cloth. When I knelt and unwrapped it, I felt my breath catch. It was a photograph, old, faded, of a little girl sitting on a beach, holding a pale blue seashell, the same seashell Lumen had given me on the very first night. I hadn't seen that picture in decades. It was me, and beside me, in the photograph, sat a silver grey kitten, a kitten I had once found and cared for during a summer long ago, before he disappeared the night my family moved away. I had forgotten. Time had buried it somewhere deep. But Lumen remembered. His moonlit eyes watched me with a softness so deep it felt like a story all on its own. When I looked up again, he was walking toward the path leading out of town, tail high. I called to him. He paused only once to look back, and then he continued on, disappearing into the silver glow of the moonlit road. He has not returned since, but I know he will someday, because the moon always finds its way back, and so do the hearts that remember. May your nights be gentle, your dreams be kind, and may the moonlight always find you. Good night, dreamer.